Welcome to Media Representation Week. Every day this week, a new video will be released, detailing our examinations of the most popular media in the West, and displaying how certain groups are super abundantly overrepresented in our supposedly meritocratic system. For all these videos, we encourage you to examine the data for yourself. A link to the spreadsheet for each will be available in the video description. If you have any questions about our methodology, please reference the FAQ, also available in the description. If you find any error in any of our spreadsheets, please email me at leatherapronchan@gmail.com. Include a quality source to back up your claim, and I will update the spreadsheet accordingly. We begin this examination with another member of the intellectual dark web, Sam Harris, and his show, Making Sense, in which 38.7% of all guests and 44% of the political guests are ethnically Jewish. This means Harris's show has a higher proportion of Jewish guests than any show we've examined. And I'll remind you that despite making up almost 40% of Harris's guests, Jewish individuals make up only 2% of the US population, meaning they are 19 times overrepresented among all guests and 22 times overrepresented among political guests. I won't bother going through the rest of the data in detail, but for those who are interested, here is a screenshot summarizing the high-level findings. Now, before we go any further, I have to tell you, this video was sponsored by Atlas VPN. Atlas VPN is the best way to keep your data and your browsing secure while you're online. Right now, they're running a deal where you can sign up for just $1.83 a month by clicking the link in the description. And they will even throw in an extra 3 months for free. This makes Atlas VPN the most affordable, quality online protection service. And the deal comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee, so there's really nothing to lose. But the offer is time limited, so make sure to sign up now. Once you are signed up and connected to Atlas VPN, all of your internet traffic will be encrypted and safe from prying eyes, be they at a coffee shop, airport lounge, or online retailer. Yes, say for instance you're shopping online for plane tickets. Many online retailers will track your browsing history. Say you find a ticket for one price, shop around a little bit more, and then come back to that original ticket, they will often have raised the price, usually without you noticing. With Atlas VPN, the trackers cannot follow you like this, making it a great way to save money while shopping online. But Atlas VPN is more than just a VPN. It blocks all malicious links, ads, and trackers that are unfortunately very common on websites these days. And it can do this across unlimited devices, meaning you can use Atlas VPN on your phone, laptop, and whatever else, all with one subscription. And lastly, you can use Atlas VPN to get access to region-locked content. Say that your favorite Netflix show is only available in the UK, and you, thankfully, don't live in the UK. Well, simply connect to one of their UK servers, and now you can watch that show only available in the UK from anywhere. Like I said, click the link in the video description to get access to this limited time offer of just $1.83 a month with an extra 3 months thrown in free and a 30-day money-back guarantee. Thank you to Atlas VPN for sponsoring this video. They are our guys. Now back to the video. Something that I think it's important to show you is this chart that I've made that we will be adding to throughout the week. More than anything else, I think it displays clearly just how pronounced this issue is. It breaks down the guests of this podcast by ethnic group, and then compares their number of guest appearances to the proportion of their population in the United States. Jews, for instance, make up about 2.5% of the US population. So because 113 of the 292 guest appearances on Harris's podcast were by Jews, this means that Jews are represented at a rate of 1,818%, or 1,718% in terms of over-representation, that is their percent representation above 100%. White guests, on the other hand, accounted for 132 of the appearances on the show. So when you compare that to their population percentage, this actually means they are 25% underrepresented. Also note that despite whites outnumbering Jews 30-1 in the United States, the number of guest appearances for Jewish and white individuals is pretty close at 113 and 132 respectively. Clearly there is something at play here. Now in each of these videos, after I review the data, I want to give you a brief commentary about the study to address some of the rebuttals that I may receive and whatnot. So if you'll allow me, for this video I want to touch on a common rebuttal that I think many will try to make. That it's only natural that Jewish hosts should have a disproportionate number of Jewish guests on their show. And of course, Harris is himself half Jewish. After all, nobody bats an eye when they see black podcast hosts having a disproportionate amount of black guests on. Now, while this may be a factor, as we'll see throughout the week, it's also the case that it doesn't explain the entire story. Otherwise, people like Rogan and a few others that we will be examining wouldn't also have this extreme Jewish overrepresentation. Additionally, this explanation that Jews have an ethnic preference for other Jews is not likely to be one that apologists should want to employ. After all, you're basically saying that these people practice ethnic nepotism, at least to a degree, since guest appearances on these popular shows are quite valuable in terms of the publicity they provide. Appearances on Rogan's show, for instance, have played no small part in launching the careers of most of the members of the intellectual dark web. So an appearance is in many ways like a gift. Additionally, and perhaps more importantly, a podcast host choosing their guests is akin to them choosing which ideas are allowed to enter the zeitgeist. For a silly example, take the fact that Joe Rogan has made popular the idea that Atlantis was potentially a real city by having figures such as Graham Hancock and Jimmy Corsetti on his show. Now, I'm not saying either of these men is right or wrong about their assertions. I really don't know. But there are many archaeologists who disagree with them, and their opinions are never heard. And now millions of Rogan fans believe in the possibility of Atlantis being real where before they had never even heard of it. Now, this is a trivial example, of course, but it shows how easily those who control these large media entities can sway public opinion. And it shows why we ought to be extremely cautious about the formation of our media landscape. Small groups can very much have huge impacts on public perception about any subject. Narratives about certain politicians, or larger geopolitical happenings like wars. For instance, Keith Woods has a great video breaking down how the Iraq War was made a reality in no small part due to a small group of neocons in the Pentagon's Office of Special Plans. A great many of them hardline Zionists, who cooked up the lies that got the US involved in Iraq in the first place. Now moving on, I want to make one last high-level comment about these studies. Many will, or already have, assume a particular intention on my part in making these videos. Despite the fact that I have never given my opinion on my research, I have simply published it. And by the way, I have never been contacted and told that my data was incorrect since listing my sources, despite the open offer. Yet still, many online, and even Eric Weinstein on Joe Rogan's podcast, assume malintent and try to shut me down.
We're in an emergency situation. Leather Apron Club is like tremendous, very clever, and incredibly important.
As if they are afraid of somebody making true statements, as if the truth could actually cause harm. It is these opponents of truth that we ought to be skeptical of, not of the man publishing easily verifiable facts with data that he releases to the public. I've actually heard of the term malinformation for the first time, which is supposed to be information that is true, but which is spread with the intent to cause harm. Of course, the premise of the word is ridiculous since you can't know someone's intention for an absolute fact. Nonetheless, I imagine it won't be very long till this term is levied against myself. And it, combined with misinformation and disinformation, seemingly allow anything you say to be categorized as a form of wrongthink. And why should this research be considered taboo anyhow? I regularly see it bemoaned in the mainstream media that whites occupy the majority of the positions of power in the West. A none too surprising conclusion given that these countries are majority white, but whatever. Just look at the study conducted by the New York Times, in which they conclude that 80% of the 922 most powerful people in America are white, and state that this is a problem. Now, these journalists are permitted to conduct this research and are even lauded for it, while people who point out similar conclusions that aren't as favorable to their narrative are demonized. And by the way, this study counted Jewish people as white, so it's pretty much useless. If I have an intention in publishing this data, it is simply to return a sense of groundedness to our political discourse, to allow people once again the license to examine taboo subjects critically and fairly. Many topics exist today. Topics that people feel a profound sense of fear to mention even in dark corners of bars and restaurants. There are too many words that people will look side to side before daring to utter. And I, for one, think this is shameful and unmanly behavior, and it reflects poorly on our country. I know that I, for one, will never be shamed or intimidated out of speaking the truth. Now that'll be all for today, but Media Representation Week rolls on. Look for a new video dropping tomorrow where I will be examining the podcast of another member of the intellectual dark web, Jordan Peterson. And as always, I maintain an open offer that if anybody I cover in these videos wishes to discuss my findings, then I am more than open to the idea. So Mr. Harris, let me know if you would like to discuss. It can be arranged.